All right, good evening. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started. Is this working? No?
Microphone's not working, Brian.
It's not working?
Maybe it's your
Hello?
demeanor.
Hello? I can't tell. It is. Is it working?
Yeah.
Is this one working?
Testing,
Hey, I
testing.
can't hear this one either. Can you? Okay. It's just really quiet.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm gonna hope that it is working. We'll call together the City Council public hearing work session for this evening, and the clerk will call the roll.
Mayor Brian Mock,
Present?
Mayor Pro Tem Jimmy First,
Present.
Councilmember John Mesa. Here. Councilmember Leslie Robson.
Also present.
Councilmember Paul Stovall.
Here.
Councilmember Elmer Vythe.
Here.
All right. We'll need to approve the agenda for this evening.
Motion to approve the agenda as presented by staff.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented by staff. Any discussion? All in favor? That is unanimous. All right. Any announcements this evening, Kristen? No announcements, no presentations. All right, well, that'll take us right on into public hearings this evening, and I will read the rules of order for public hearings, zoning matters. The hearing shall be presided over by the mayor. After calling the hearing to order, the mayor shall request the parcels of property which are the subject of the zoning proposal to be identified and read. Following such identification and reading, the development director's recommendation shall be presented. The mayor and city council shall then cause the director's written recommendation to be made part of the record. Proponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning the zoning decision. If all 10 minutes are not used, the proponent's remaining time may be reserved for rebuttal. Opponents of each proposed zoning decision shall then be allowed a total of 10 minutes for presentation of data, evidence, and opinion concerning each zoning decision. The presentation times may not be reduced, but may be extended by majority vote, provided they are expanded equally for proponents and opponents. And anyone wishing to speak must come to the microphone, give your name and address to the city clerk, and do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. And with that, we will move into our first public hearing this evening, which is PZ 2024-1333. That's 4970 Buford Highway.
Mayor and Council, John Maximuk, Director of Planning and Development. I'm here to present the variance application and recommendation for 4970 Buford Highway. This is a request for 3 variances and 2 waivers. So some background: the variances require City Council approval, and the waivers require City Council approval. The variances come from Title II of the Unified Development Ordinance. Any variance request requires a public hearing. The waivers do not require that public hearing or the public notice, but they still require that approval from Mayor and Council. So some background on that. This is an encroachment into buffer setbacks. The PowerPoint says stream buffer setbacks, but it's just buffer setbacks between the 2 zoning districts for construction of an addition in the street side yard of the site. Let me tell you more about it. This is the site location. It's technically Buford Highway, but it's located some distance away from, west of Buford Highway, back next to the City Farmers Market, which is marked there on this aerial map. You'll notice it's a triangle-shaped lot. It's not a conventionally shaped lot. And what you can't see from this is that there's a significant topographical change between the front of the site and the back, the Carroll Circle neighbor. So the applicant's requests in detail, I mentioned 3 waiver requests and 3 variance requests and 2 waiver requests. The first variance request from Section 230 is to reduce the required 20-foot buffer along that southwestern property line to 10 feet, where 20 feet is required. The reason for that is a drainage structure that needs to go in there. And then the second is a variance from Section 250 to reduce the minimum number of required parking spaces from 78 to 45. And the third is a variance request from Section 250 to allow automobile parking between a principal building and street in the form of a parallel parking space. And I'll get into that a little bit later when we look at the site plan. The applicant seeks waivers from Title III of the UDO, a waiver from Section 320 to not meet the minimum planting ratios for every 50 linear feet of unvegetated buffer area. Well, what does that mean? So the UDO requires plantings of overstory trees, understory trees, and shrubbery at that interval. And of the 17 required, the applicants are proposing 13. Of 25 understory, the applicants proposing 7. And for the shrubbery, 167 are required. The applicants proposing 113. So it's not a complete, the request is not a complete waiver from the requirement. It's a partial requirement in each of those 3 areas. And then last is a waiver from Section 350 to reduce the minimum drive aisle width from 22 feet to 16 feet. So if you're driving in a shopping center, it's a 2-way drive. The standard we have for this area is 22 feet. The proposal is to go down to 16 feet. Here's the proposed plan. You can see the bottom side is the Carroll Circle. In the dotted lines, you can see the apartment buildings that form the neighboring property. And the buffer that we're talking about is along that long line of the triangle. And then you see a driveway that surrounds the proposed development. And you can see the proposed development in the center of this diagram, or this plan. And you can see the site improvements that are being made. The variance for parking has to do with locating the parking on either side of the building in front of the building line. And so that's what the section of the UDO has to deal with there. There's also an overall reduction in the number of parking spaces. This is an interesting improvement. Staff is in support of this for a couple different reasons. There's parallel parking in the front of the building along the existing driveway, and there's a new open space built into the existing parking lot to the right and in front of the proposed building. And we'll see a little bit more of that in context here with the planting plan, both for the buffer and for the area between the principal building and the existing driveway. You can also see that the owner's existing building is also organized in a better way with striping and with directional travel. And you'll certainly see from the site photos in a moment that improvement. As we usually do, here are the building elevation views, the views from the side as the buildings will appear when finished on all 4 sides. We're not evaluating the building right now for a building permit. This is solely for the site. Perspective views of what the building will look like. So this is the site today. The site on the left is the building space, and the site on the right is the existing parking lot and the existing building that'll be adjacent to it. Different views of the same thing. This shows a little bit of the area of what the border looks like between Carroll Circle and the development site. This shows the driveway that serves City Farmers Market. It's marked as a one-way street. As part of this site plan approval, should the council approve this, we would see an improvement in this, and that we would move this one-way sign down a little bit and again formalize the driveway so that two-way traffic can come and go before the one-way area for truck deliveries. This is also the site of required crosswalk that staff has proposed as part of the agreement. Should the council agree to the variances and the waivers, a crosswalk would be put here to connect the farmers market with the applicant's proposed building site. So as alluded to, this is approval with conditions. We find primarily because of the topography that the approvals can be granted and a hardship does exist for the 3 variances in question and the 2 waivers. Should the council go ahead and approve this, our staff conditions are standard ones, plan submitted, that's substantially similar to what you're seeing today. That the applicant shall provide a pedestrian connection from the subject property to the adjacent multifamily development to the southwest. Final design and approval subject to the department. This is to provide pedestrian access for Carroll Circle to the rest of the shopping area, or at least a stub. And that the applicant shall plant a composition of shrubbery in the front of the parking of the building and expand plantings in the triangle of the open space at the far left of the site. The applicant shall provide a written agreement and record set of plans showing existing grease trap and dumpster enclosure at 4978 next door shall be removed. And because staff finds that it would be an obstruction to the two-way traffic, that it's being reorganized there. And that is the end of the presentation for this request.
Is there anyone here this evening wishing to speak in favor of this item? Come on up to the microphone. Give us your name and address, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Van Nguyen. I'm the property owner. I just want to thank you for your support and the staff support on this project. I just spoke to John earlier about the removal of the dumpster and the grease trap of the building in the front, and I will actively work with John after to see how that can be relocated, because right now it's a supermarket there. So we remove it, they will have to stop their business, so I guess we'll have to relocate somewhere for them. Thank you.
All right. Anyone else here wishing to speak in favor of this item? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? All right. This item will come back up later on in the agenda. Council may or may not have questions at that time, okay? Next up on the hearings is the tree permit sign ordinance.
I'm going to take that over here, Mayor. So we talked about this ordinance amendment a couple months ago. This would be an amendment to the UDO to require that anybody who issues a tree permit must post a sign to correspond with the permit, notifying the public and the community that there's a tree that has been permitted to be removed. And so that is what we're looking at this evening. We have to have a public hearing because it's a text amendment to the UDO. It will be later on the agenda for you to consider moving to first read.
Okay, very good. Under old business this evening, we have 2 sets of minutes. Anyone see anything that needed to be? Oh, sorry. Skip right over that, didn't I? Anyone here wishing to speak in favor or on this tree permit sign ordinance? Sorry about that. Didn't mean to cut off citizen comment. Anyone here wishing to speak in opposition to the tree sign ordinance? All right. Seeing none. Then we'll exit the public hearing and move on down And we have two sets of minutes, work session and the regular meeting from October the 10th and October the 15th. Anyone see anything that needed to be changed or updated on those? Nothing? All right, we'll move on down then to new business, and first item up is the PTV ordinance discussion.
So this is just an item for discussion tonight. Our city attorney has provided you with a memo kind of outlining the process to move forward with getting an ordinance approved I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. Get an ordinance approved to consider allowing personal transportation vehicles in different roadways across the city. She has outlined several recommendations of steps that you guys would need to, that the city would need to take and the council would need to consider before we are able to actually adopt the ordinance, including establishing which streets we would allow the PTV vehicles to operate, designating certain signs and symbols, notifying people that they are operating on these roadways. It would need to be reviewed by our law enforcement agency, and we would have to have a traffic engineer assess it as well. So just wanted to put this in front of you guys, have some discussion about it, and get some direction on how you want us to proceed.
All right, very good. I'll open that up to council. Questions, concerns?
When we first started talking about this when Chuck was, I guess, driving the ship at that point, there was some discussion about the map and where, like, if there was going to be crossings on Peachtree Boulevard to get to the other side, or I haven't seen any of that yet. Or does that come later, or?
It should be in your inbox.
In my inbox. Okay. I didn't have access to email today.
So I will say, our traffic engineer, to my knowledge, because of how this was kind of left off, a traffic engineer has not established those roadways. With the link that I sent you guys, which is why the map itself is not included in your packet, is that map shows all of the streets in Chamblee that meet that 25 miles per hour minimum or maximum speed limit for PTVs to be able to operate. And so we would take that, look at it with a traffic engineer, and determine a list of roads, put that back in front of you all for your review. There's no map that actually exists with the specific roads at this point in time.
And those, the roads that we're talking about, I know the answer, but I just want to say this.
505,
Also
I didn't
include
get
the
this.
crosswalks or the intersections, such as the intersection of a 25-mile-an-hour road with a 35 or 45-mile-an-hour
Right.
road. So that takes all of that into consideration. Does it take into consideration, because I'm sorry, I did not read it very well, does it take into consideration electric bikes, one-wheels,
No.
and things like that? Because, I watch people on electric bikes or pedal assist or whatever you want to call them, and scooters and things like that, and I am shocked at some of the vehicles that I see on 45-mile-an-hour roads, like these little mini scooters and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, they're wearing their helmets and everything, but they're not, I don't even think they're capable of doing 45 miles an hour. And I just feel like that probably is something that also should be included. I mean, there's got to be a line between one and the other. I get that, but I
Yeah.
just see that becoming a big problem.
Yeah, I think from a state law standpoint, we might be really limited on our ability to regulate the scooters, for example, or a one-wheeler. I don't know that one-wheelers are allowed on state or in state roads or state routes. I think those are almost exclusive to kind of pedestrian access-oriented areas. But scooters, I don't know that we have the ability unless we'd have to dive a little bit deeper into state law on that one.
I'm not talking about the scooters that you stand on. I'm talking about the little mini scooters and things. I'm seeing them on Beaufort Highway, and I'm scared to death for
No,
those people.
there's a family that rides an electric bicycle, 4-up. Mother, father, kid, and a baby, and they ride it on Claremont Road all the time. They shouldn't be, and that's probably already covered by the bicycle laws. That is something we need to dig into, though. I agree. I think this is kind of some Brave New World stuff that needs to be explored because it hasn't really been considered.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And for the benefit of everybody watching on TV and the PTV, we're talking about golf carts and other type things
Essentially
like.
golf carts.
There's a weight
Gators.
there's a weight requirement, like vehicles sub 1,000 pounds or something like that.
Yeah, I'd have to confirm the specifics. I can't remember off the top of my
Gotcha.
head.
All right, any other comments?
Did we learn anything?
The only other thing I have, so this is going to be for any PTV operating in Chamblee, not necessarily only owned or registered, only residing in Chamblee.
Correct.
So if someone in Brookhaven wants to drive their vehicle here, they're going to have to follow this process as well.
Right,
Okay.
correct.
Just wanted to make sure. Thank you.
So what we need, the staff would need direction from you, and the attorney would need direction from you if you want us to go ahead and get this whole process started, because it's pretty lengthy. It's going to require some review, and we would want to get started on it, get the engineer involved, get Chief Dieppe and his team involved, and potentially, if we have to talk to GDOT as well.
What expense are we talking about doing all this analysis for this?
I'm sorry.
What kind of expense are we talking about having traffic engineers and attorneys and everybody study all this?
Off the top of my head, I don't know that I could give you a dollar figure, but obviously, it's going to take a little bit of time and manpower to determine it. And we've obviously spent time with an attorney looking over it, doing the analysis, putting the information together. I think the attorney side of it would be relatively complete, because she's already given you the legal parameters, so it would be the cost to get the traffic engineer involved. So we would probably use our engineer, Chamblee Horn, to take a look at it, and then obviously going through our chief and having staff put time to it.
And I'll just remind everybody, the reason that I brought this forward was, and I just saw it the other day, I was going down Dredgen Road, and there was a family of 5, a mom and dad, 2 little children, not buckled in, and a baby in arms. I just literally saw this last week, going down one of the busiest streets. Granted, it wasn't in Chamblee, it was in Brookhaven. But it's just a matter of time before somebody gets hit, and they're going to point to us and say, hey, you didn't have this right safety measures in place, we're suing the city. We've seen it before, so this is just a risk mitigation exercise, an education exercise, and just making sure that we're making people safe within our borders.
And protecting people from themselves.
I have to just bring to light, though, what you just said kind of runs contrary to Section 86-152, which basically says vehicles are not designed or manufactured or used on highways, and the city is in no way advocates their operation on public roads within its jurisdiction. Adoption is not to be relied upon as a determination by the city that operation is safe and advisable.
Totally understand that. So the part of this process would be a registration fee, and then they would have to understand, hey, you cannot take this on Peachtree Boulevard, because even though...
Right, I don't think that, while I don't think this is a bad route to be going down, I don't think it provides that indemnity that you just referred to. By allowing them to be used, by allowing non-road vehicles to be used on our roads, and saying, yes, the manufacturer says it's not meant for this, but you'll go ahead and do it, it kind of sets you up into a feedback loop. I just went through this with a safety standard for performer flying, where they're trying to write it, the group that's working on the standard wants to allow parts that are made not for flying people to be used anyway, as long as someone says so. And all the manufacturers of those parts that are getting misused are going, no, there's absolutely no way we can let that stand. So it's been a 6-month fight over 3 sentences in a document that isn't even word of law. So if we're wanting to reduce risks and hazards, that's a very good idea, but it doesn't also act as a magic shield, I don't think.
It's a fair point. It's a fair point. People are doing it today already, so we'll
Right,
have the
so-
education.
Absolutely, and the other option is to say it's absolutely not allowed in the city of Chamblee, and when our police officers see it, they stop them and impound the vehicles immediately. I mean, if truly safety is the thing, and we're going to protect people from their own poor choices, then it can end up looking like that.
So looking at the map, It looks like a lot of the green roads do not connect with one another or very many other roads. So you would have, and is there a way or possibility of establishing PTV crossings on, say,
Yeah, that would be part of
on
the
Peachtree
process.
Boulevard? That, I mean, I don't know how they would do, they'd line up, but I mean, they'd have to, like, for example, drive into Chamblee Plaza and then cross at Broad Street there if they were going to do that.
So part of the process, so taking the map that we have where we know all of the streets that are quote-unquote eligible, we can wheedle that down, and then we can look at the crossings that make sense. One of the other requirements is that we have to put up signs and symbols that designate certain areas and communicate out that it's quote-unquote an accommodation to a PTV vehicle.
I was aware of that, but then looking at the map, like I said, they don't line up. Like, you'd have to go down the road,
Right,
100 feet, 200 feet to get to the next
right,
that crosses.
right.
I turned it off because I karate chopped it, then, so Jimmy said, so anyway.
I think that's the piece that we would want the traffic engineer to take because like I said, right now it's only all the streets that are eligible. So we'd want the traffic engineer to kind of piece it together in a way that is succinct and makes sense so you're not cut off at one point because you can't actually cross the road and put a vehicle.
Yeah, it looks like Keswick and Sexton Woods can't go to Huntley Hills.
Yeah,
And neither can go to Mid-City.
right.
And Mid-City can't do anything but go to Mid-City. I don't know if anybody that has a golf cart in Mid-City, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the challenge with the limitations of it to some extent is that it's not easy to piece all the roads together in a way that actually make it feasible for somebody to truly operate it in a quote-unquote legal manner.
It's not, we don't live in Peachtree City,
Right.
and while I understand, I'm not sure that I want to open the can of beans of having everybody in this city that wants to, from all ends of our boundaries, to have the ability to come down to downtown Chamblee in ATV or whatever you want to call them. I just feel like we're already built out, and like I said, we're not a Peachtree City, and we're never going to become one. We're beyond that. We're past that. On the other hand, I'm not totally against establishing some crossings for Peachtree Boulevard, but I think we have to be careful, not from a liability standpoint, but just from an expectation standpoint. This is just, we're not Peachtree City. That's all I have to say.
So the next steps that we would want to take is to engage a traffic engineer to study this a little bit further.
Yeah.
And so I guess the direction I need from you guys is if you want us to go ahead and move forward with that, we'll get a list of streets together, a new map with some of these questions answered to the extent that we can, and put that back in front of you before we give it to law enforcement, have them bless it, so on and so forth.
It would, I don't have a vote, but it would be very helpful for me if I knew a cost estimate of what we were looking at for this. It feels like a whole lot of work. And I don't know, I understand the intent, but I don't know the actual value to that work.
I'll get with our
You know,
engineer.
personally, I've seen, in all my years here, I've seen maybe one or two golf carts or ATVs, and they were driven by folks from other jurisdictions. They weren't Chamblee folks out driving around on a Sunday afternoon. So, yeah, I'm sure there's probably some in Huntley Hills and Keswick Park that I've not, that I've not seen. But I want to be careful when we're impacting other folks' lives, and just want to make sure that we're
State law already stops you from going
correct.
across Peachtree, some of Claremont.
Correct, and that's part of my question too. I mean, I know we had a whole discussion about how this differs from state law and what it adds to state law and all of that kind of stuff. But since there is already quite a bit of coverage of this by state law. I'd like to know, again, what kind of funding, or when you talk about hiring engineers and all this kind of stuff, what is the real cost for what we're really getting out of this? I've almost been flattened before by guys on 10-speed bicycles rolling down Peachtree Road, but I've never had a run-in with a golf cart.
Yeah, I would also mention that as we build out our trail system, right, we're talking about 1,000-pound vehicles going down the trail system, and we're not going to allow, as far as I know, golf carts, PVTs on the trail system. So this is something that we have to outline, because as that trail system expands, we're going to see more and more people put 1,000-pound vehicles on the rail trail. So I'm looking 20 years out to having control over this.
Right.
Is it not already not allowed?
Well, it's not allowed.
It's not, what do you call
Need a
it?
traffic engineer to say we can't have golf carts on our trail?
It needs a traffic engineer to help us write the laws.
And we don't have enough bollards in place to prevent that. So I thought that's why we put the bollards in
That
place.
is why we put the bollards in place, is to try to prevent those types of vehicles or an ATV, for example, from getting on the trail.
Yeah.
But
There's
I
always
agree-
going
I-
to be a way for anybody to get around anything.
I agree with you. We're looking 20 years down the road because it's going to become more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
I'd like to know how we can put a tax on the darn thing so that we can afford to build a bridge over Peachtree Boulevard that they can use.
Be a big tax.
That's a lot of pennies. The other thing is, because of this, there's not a quick and easy fix to get across your barriers of Peachtree Boulevard, Buford Highway, and that, and then are we setting ourselves up for an expectation to where folks say, well, you did all this and you have a feasibility study, or the engineer said you could do it here, when are you going to put it in? And then we do we want to be in the funding of golf carts crossing Peachtree Boulevard business? We've already got it, we're already trying to spend a bunch of money to get people across. And so I don't know, it just seems like a lot of time for a little bit of bang for not much, for a lot of buck, I guess is what I'm trying to, that's the way it seems to be going for me.
I think it depends on the whole issue of, do we really want to create the capability of people to be able to get across what we already know are barriers? We've got, the airport's a barrier, Peachtree Boulevard's a barrier, the railroad is a barrier between the disparate neighborhoods in our city. And is that what we're trying to do? Are we trying to create the ability for that a total alternative to transportation? Or are we just trying to say, you can do you can use them in the neighborhood, forget about crossing Peachtree Boulevard, get out and walk, and to use them in the neighborhood, you got to have safety in place, i.e. you can't have a 12-year-old driving the thing, you can't have no seat belts and all that kind of stuff. I think maybe the crossing of the major barriers between our neighborhoods is probably a second step, and not what we should try to achieve at first, and then take it from there. Because I think we're going to have a lot of problems with that whole. I mean, we already have problems with crossing busy streets, and there are several of them that are not even main highways, and so I think that's probably something that that's kind of tier one, and then tier two is getting these vehicles across much more dangerous crossings. So that would
I think-
probably be, the cost of doing that would be a lot less than the cost of how do we cross Peachtree Boulevard and other similar obstacles.
Yeah, and ultimately, this is to encourage people to use other modes of transportation, right? To use those e-bikes that we're talking about, to use those one wheels, to use those scooters, and not have golf carts, 1,000-pound vehicles in downtown. You use them in your neighborhood. I don't know if we need to get them across Peachtree Boulevard or vice versa.
Well, I feel like that you're actually by doing all this and determining where these crossings might be, you're setting up the game plan, the roadmap to future councils to being able to say, well, we can do this. So, you know, if you want to insulate that, then let's not give them a roadmap of how to do this in the future, you know, because that's what we're talking about doing. We're talking identifying where these crossings and stuff might be. And now you're basically the next generation of council members. I mean, I'm not going to be on council forever. So, I mean,
Yeah, but
so then you're going to hand this guy and say, hey, look, this is where you can cross. We've already had the engineering, we've had all the studies, we've had all that stuff. I'm just saying, it's a possibility.
You cannot encumber future councils.
They have to do the legwork. Instead, we're doing legwork for them.
And that's going to cost us a lot more money than just putting in place what we're going to do, and it doesn't have to be followed. Future council members, future councils can say, I don't like this plan, we'll do something else. And then we've wasted a lot of money.
Who's asking for this? Is there a lot of people asking? Because I only know one guy in our neighborhood that has one, and it wouldn't qualify under this because it doesn't have headlights and it doesn't have all the other stuff. So are there people asking for, hey, I want to use a golf cart and y'all won't let me? Or is this just, what is this? What's the driver, I guess, besides the safety thing? Because just the safety thing's easy. You just go, no, you can't.
Or, yes, you can in your neighborhood, but you got to meet these requirements.
And that, I would say that most of the things we do up here, most people aren't asking for, and that's what leadership is, is establishing.
Well,
what-
I'd like to know before we spend a bunch of time and money that there is a group of people, I'll the next point, that do want something to happen. And if that's the case, then cool. But I'm not opposing it. I just want to know if there was a lot of people.
Well, actually, there are plenty of people that do complain about the, what are we calling them? ATVs?
PVTs.
Personal transportation of the
PTV.
1,000-pound order. There are a lot of people that are very concerned about other people driving them. And for the same reasons that have been brought up, 12-year-olds are driving them with no parents or supervision. Kids are essentially hanging off the sides of them, and I've seen it. And no helmets. Are they licensed? Do they know the laws? Do they know how to stop at a stop sign, et cetera? Do the alcohol, no consumption of alcohol, does that apply? All of those things. So there are plenty of people that are not trying to drive the darn things, but they want to know that they're safe and that they're safe in their neighborhood. You said you almost got creamed by one.
No, but the 10 speed.
Oh, I'm sorry,
A
by a
bicycle.
10-speed.
No, so that, all of that stuff's already illegal. So why do we need a new law, a new ordinance? I don't, we'll talk later. I'm missing some key point because I don't see why we're spending money and adding a layer to this, but I've been wrong many times before.
I think there's a way to accomplish some of the objectives, like the safety, the children driving them, and keeping them within the neighborhoods and that kind of stuff without hiring an engineer and figuring out a way. I think we kind of all come to the conclusion that we may not want them crossing, Peachtree Boulevard. We may not probably don't want them driving on our trails, and that seems like that doesn't need a traffic engineer to tell us that. And then just common sense requirements that would, like I said, you must be over a certain age to drive them. And there's going to be a public education piece. If we want to require a driver's license, I guess we could do that. I would say if we're going to do that, don't put a charge on it. I know it will take up some staff time, but I don't think it's going to be tremendous.
We'd have to look at how that would work with state law too on that specific piece. Because there's so many elements that it's a little bit of a complicated topic, because there are elements of it that are so heavily regulated by state law, but then there are elements of it are kind of up to you guys as to how far you want to designate. Because what you're really doing is you're designating an area. You're not necessarily saying you can or you can't operate them. You're saying these are the streets that you can operate them on, and this is where you can cross.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily getting into the weeds of who, how, what. It's more of the
This
where.
GIS map that it was referred to earlier that we got last week that I missed,
It almost-
it looks like it it kind of designates and self-regulates just by this map, because I think this map follows current state law by saying these are the roads that are a certain mile per hour, versus ones that are more. So it's just by, if that's what this means, it looks like this map already by state law is already there.
Sounds like, it's almost like our entertainment district. We kind of need signage.
But I think we could add some stuff in there because a lot of people are putting children on them. They are driving alcohol to their neighborhood pools. They are doing this stuff, and that can just, we could remind folks that is.
Must obey the law.
Yeah, and that may just require
Signage.
some signage and a letter to the different pool groups and stuff, because there's not very many of them.
You don't want to single out the pool groups.
I like using them in the neighborhoods. I think that would be totally stinking. I think it'd be cool.
Right.
But, yeah, okay, cool. I think I may have just been interpreting a larger scope of what we were trying to achieve. All right, good.
Well, I think that's what the purpose of tonight is, to determine how large a scope, how big a bite we want to take.
Yeah, I mean, the other path to this, right, is we just say there's no TVs in the entertainment district because of the alcohol and everything else that's going on there, and say that's it, call it a day. You just can't have it there, and that could be the simplest and easiest way to move forward on this.
But they can't anyway, because it's 35.
Yeah,
No, I just,
Right?
I think that people just
Discourage
need to be
people
reminded.
crossing.
Okay.
well, you can't.
And I
you
think
can't get
much
from-
like our entertainment district signs, this is the limit, blah, 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 make people aware, and not allowed on the trails, blah, 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 and
So let me ask you this, would you rather us take an attempt to just do some education on state law first? And then if we want to take it any further, we can do the analysis and all of that later on for
I
consideration?
think that'd be a good
I
idea.
think first we need to understand the cost,
Okay.
as Brian said in the beginning,
Right.
and, Mayor Mox said in the beginning, and prim up here, proper, to understand, and then, yes, I think education, we should do that regardless, and then see the next step based on that cost analysis.
Okay.
I think the different costs for different tiers of approach, such as, I don't think anybody up here has the will to say, figure out a way we can get them to cross Petrie Boulevard.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
Who
Good
thought
deal.
we would spend that much time talking about golf carts?
You're regulating people's ability to get around town safely. All right, next up on the agenda this evening is an annexation referendum resolution discussion.
Thank you. To file a bill in the legislature this session to call for a referendum, you all will have to pass a resolution asking the legislature to consider the bill. And in order to get that introduced early in the session in 2025, we would have to pass that resolution this month. And so there's not a resolution on the agenda tonight, but depending on how this conversation goes, if you guys want to move forward with having that resolution, we will prepare it and have it on the agenda for Tuesday with the map associated.
All right, well, I'll start on this. This is something that we've been talking about a long time. I'm not going to go into history, but when I was first elected to council in late 2013 and took my seat in 2014, the week after I sat in my chair, a group came to me asking about how they could get annexed into the city. And, I don't know if anybody else saw the draft of that Irene sent out on the proposed resolution, but it basically goes through the history of annexations and talks a little bit about the fact that in the 2020 census, the city of Chamblee was the second fastest growing city in the state of Georgia, and that was due mainly to multiple annexations over the years. If we study our history, we know Chamblee went from 3,000 to 6,000 to 10,000 to 14,000 to now a little over 30,000 And most, I don't know if all, but most of this body sitting up on this dais was once an unincorporated DeKalb, and your neighborhoods, our neighborhoods, were brought into the city. And quite frankly, I think my opinion is the city is far better off for having all of you and for having all of the neighborhoods that we have taken in. It's allowed us a lot of flexibility to do a lot of things. There's a lot of power in numbers, and I don't have to tell you that there's a certain mark that when we hit a certain size as a city, it opens a lot of doors for us. Looking at where we are now, our last annexation 10 years ago, in 2014, almost doubled the size of our city. And this particular annexation that we're discussing this evening would almost do that again. Not quite, but it would certainly be about 75% based on the numbers that I've seen. I don't need to tell this council because we've just gone through a budget session. Our budget, as I talked to the city manager about earlier this afternoon, budget gets harder every year. It gets tighter every year. And, the way to alleviate some of that is look for opportunities for growth. And, so we've been looking at this area for a long, long time. And there's one council member up here that always reminds me, sometimes it's time to, and I hate to say it like that, but take a crap or get off the pot. And that's just flat out, where I'm at right now, because you say it a little bit differently than I say it, but it is what it is. We there's never going to be a perfect time to have this discussion, but as I've said, there's no time better than the present. There is a great deal of support on the other side of 85 for this. Of course, there's some opposition, but there's a great deal of support, and we saw that when we went through this procedure last year, that there was a whole lot of support. Things happened. We didn't make it. We didn't achieve the goal that we were hoping to get, and it was a trying time. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't take another stab at it in a different way. A lot of folks have said this. This again would be something that would be placed on the agenda for people to vote on. And whether we like the outcomes of elections or not, I still believe that the best way to have a democratic society is to allow people to vote for their own destiny and choose what they want. And, again, don't always agree with the outcome, but I can't argue that voting is the best way to achieve the success that we're all looking to achieve in our lives. So that's just my opening statement. That's where I'm at. We're not, in my world, this is nothing. What we're asking for, or what we would be asking for on Tuesday, is the right to advertise for this, to send this resolution to the General Assembly. It's no guarantee that the General Assembly. I've spoke to many of them, a lot of them outside of our area in the last few days. I've spoke to leadership. There's varying opinions on how this would go. I know from conversations with the new administration that they are open to this. That was something we did not have with the old administration of DeKalb County, but the new administration seems to be looking at this from a different approach. So one way or another, I'm comfortable that we could get this on the ballot if that is our desire. I would also add that this is not a ball of twine that cannot be unwound before it goes on the ballot. If we have, I know I spoke to the city manager today about a cost analysis and making sure that the numbers match, because I'm going to tell you, sitting in this chair right here, the last thing that I would ever support as mayor is to strap my current citizens with debt or with cost that we couldn't recoup or would cost them out of pocket for a new area. That's just not right to do that to your current citizens. But I believe just on past studies, and I know the city manager is going to look into this further, but I believe on past studies that this area would more than pay for itself. And there's, of course, other avenues that we can take to look at revenue if we so desire. But it's not all we're doing right now is sending this up the chain to see if we can actually get it on the ballot. And it's not a ball and twine that can't be unwound if something comes down the line in a month or so and, and shows us that it is not cost effective for us to do, or there's other concerns. I also want to just clarify, with growth, there's a need to service that growth. And the conversations that I've had, I feel comfortable and assured that no switch is going to be flipped off overnight from DeKalb County. There will be a ramp-up period, just as with our last annexations. There will be a ramp-up period where we will have to enter into an IGA with the county to cover some of those services until we can hire all the police officers that we need. I know, in conversation, I heard we would have to add about 45 or so officers. I believe that's what the chief said. It's going to take a while to add those officers. That's not going to happen overnight. But I am confident and comfortable because it's in the county's best interest, not just the city's best interest, but the county, it's in their best interest to continue servicing those servicing those residents until such time that we are comfortable that we can take over those services. Remember, the sanitation and things like that, the county has is decently staffed in the sanitation area, so they say. I don't know. I know their police are a little bit short. But in sanitation, I've not heard anything that would lead me to believe that it would not be in their best interest to keep their employees on the job and have them to continue those services. And again, as the CEO-elect says to me, no matter what, we're all DeKalb County, and we're all going to take care of each other. How we get there is how we get there, but we're all still going to be in this together and take care of each other. So that's kind of my opening comments, and I'll open it up to anyone else who wants to speak.
So you said most everything. My reasons for keeping this going is just to keep this alive, to keep this process alive so that we have options next year. If we don't do something now, then it will be another year or whatever. And like you said, I don't know if there's ever going to be a great time or a really bad time, whatever. We just have to keep going. I think this is the best way. I prefer this way over any other method, really, because this lets the folks vote. And you find out a lot of stuff when you let people vote. And so that's all. You said everything else, so that's all I have for now.
And I completely agree with what you said, Paul. Brian, you have said almost everything. But I want also to look back on the history of the past 10 years, I would say. I might be wrong about the exact number of years. But there has been a lot of discussion from many, many, many different groups about how to divvy up North DeKalb County. I think the city of Chamblee has proven capable of doing a fantastic job in offering the same services that when I moved to Chamblee we had when we were 7,000, and our services were next to none, the best, and they still are. And our citizens depend on that, and we have continued with the 2 annexations that I know of. I don't know how many you counted and don't know how you counted them either. However, the 2 major annexations that we have done a remarkable job of ramping up, of watching our money while still providing our newly annexed areas with the exemplary services that we've always provided for the original City of Chamblee members. I know there's opposition out there as well. Some of it is just maybe based on what used to exist when I moved here, which was my husband wouldn't put Chamblee on the return address because it wasn't cool. But it is now. But what I'm saying is that I think there might be some fear that if this annexation were to go through, that we would lose our neighborhoodness, our coziness, our everybody knows everybody-ness. But we won't, because we know that's what makes Chamblee Chamblee, and that's something that we all fight for. So, and I agree with you as well. This is going to keep coming up forever and ever and ever. It's going to get harder and harder forever and ever and ever. There are all of the cities around us in North DeKalb are trying to do the same thing. And so it's not going to go away. And so now's a good time to do it.
So when we first started talking about this at the retreat and the budget retreat and how that would affect us, one of the concerns was just the information. How much information do we have and that kind of thing. And then I was kind of felt pushed into deciding in the next few days, do we want to move forward? And so I've done some research and looked, did my time where it seems like we're going to have several opportunities, if, as Brian said, if we don't find something doesn't pan out, doesn't look like we're going to be able to deliver the Chamblee standard to somebody that we can pull the plug, even if, like Paul said, if we don't do something by Tuesday, then we have no opportunity to pull the plug because we'll be pulling it effectively on Tuesday. So I would like the city manager to tell me if she has any feedback on how we get the information we need, how long it might take, and then to her knowledge, how realistic is it that we can pull the plug 6 months from now, whatever. I also want to talk about the date that we had been kicking around. There was a May date? But I mean, is it November or is it not?
No, I think November.
I mean, I'm not in favor of an early date, whatever it is. It needs to be later, and whatever, because I think that's what it's going to take to get the information. And we also have heard that we want. I'm going to say quite a number of you folks here out there. I recognize most of your faces already, so this is going to be a little bit different effort. It's going to require much more effort on people that it's going to be directly affecting and not so much what we do on our side. We're going to determine if it's feasible financially and a good fit for our current citizens. Your guys' job is to determine if Chamblee's a good fit for the future residents. So we learned our lessons with the last annexation that we don't want to go another route. So we definitely want to go this route if we're going to go. And I just want to echo everything Leslie, Brian, and Paul said, and maybe what Jimmy and Elmer said, but they haven't said anything yet, so I'll let them speak.
Yeah, I have severe reservations around the scale, the financial impact, and the timing of the annexation. We're lacking the financial analysis, as we just said, and the impact on the budget. We just went through a budgeting exercise. We had $4 million in overrun that we had to shed from this particular budget. So adding 18,500 people and 800 businesses, we just don't know what the impact that's going to be on our budget and the services for our current citizens. Public Works has said that the leaf and limb most likely would go away, or that program, because adding 18,000 people and the complexity of the leaf and limb program that we have now just could not be perpetuated with that many people added to the city in that kind of area. We also know the infrastructure under the streets is going to be decrepit. It's going to be in a bad shape from the last 2 annexations that we have done. And we have no impact what that cost will be. And I don't know if we can actually put that into the financial analysis as well. I'm a data-driven person. I just don't have the data to support this today. And I also want to talk about the timing. Why now? What's the rush? There's never a good time, but there's always better times. And this is not a good time for us for a few reasons. The first one is we have a new CEO coming in, and you can make all the promises you want until you get into the seats, and then reality strikes. And we have no idea what that reality be with basically a new board of commissioners coming in. We just don't know. So there's some realities there, some political realities that we don't know if it's going to be supported. My preference would be to do this in 2026 at this scale. I've always supported annexation. Everybody in this room knows I was a big proponent of it before, but a smaller scale with the data and with a plan to move forward.
I guess it's the history teacher's turn. Everyone in the days knows my history with annexations. I think most of you from the areas in question have heard this. I'm a big fan of them. I wouldn't have this seat if it wasn't for the last annexation. That annexation done by referendum was 100% driven by the residents. The city of Chamblee's involvement was a councilman who came to a public meeting, and after hearing that Brookhaven had absolutely no interest in taking those areas into their about-to-be-formed city, he stood up and went, "You can join Chamblee." And the council at the time voted and passed a referendum supporting it. It was the residents of the area that went to the state legislature and got a bill. It was not the city of Chamblee, both times. Because it had to be voted on twice, because the first time we failed, we got lucky because DeKalb County's Board of Elections made mistakes, so we got a second bite of the apple for the exact same map. And at the same time, we ended up having another city try and annex a bunch of commercial property with another proposed city try and include all the commercial areas in their map because they needed it for their tax base. And we had to fight all those things off. We had meetings last year in the Embry Hills area with the state legislators. They asked for an outpouring. They needed a showing of support from the residents. And we had an after-action conversation with them. And they had more negative emails hit their inboxes in the week after that first meeting than positives. I'm not saying people don't support it. I'm saying that the negative voices did a much better job of motivating their people. In January of this year, this body voted and accepted a resolution that I put forward saying that the city of Chamblee is open to annexation and will welcome any group that wishes to do so. I have not seen that groundswell from the residents standing up. I've not heard it publicly that they're getting together in their living rooms with their neighbors. They're talking about it at their block parties. If they are, and I've been left out of the loop, then that's on me. But you need that groundswell, and it takes a couple of years to make this happen. It took the city of Brookhaven 2.5 years from the time they really got rolling until they had their vote. The Dresden East Claremont area, it was a 2-year cycle until that was passed, and it was a ton of legwork. To the question of, when can we, stop unrolling this ball of string, if the state legislature passes the bill that allows for a vote and the governor signs it, it's on the ballot. That's it. There's no more pulling it back. The city can't go, oops, sorry, no, never mind, we're done. We don't want to do this. If, once we're down that road, we find out that economically it's going to be an albatross. Once that bill is passed and the governor signs it, it's on the agenda. I don't think any of us want to be in a position where we have to publicly come out and say, oh, hi, the city just got done all its financial accounting on this, and this would be a really bad idea. We'd really appreciate it if you didn't vote yes right now. I don't want to be in that spot. That's way more than egg on my face. The city staff doing homework, getting a handle on the numbers, absolutely. But jumping on, getting this pushed out and trying to get a bill through this next session of the state, I do not think is in our best interest, not without having that information already laid out. I cannot speak to the Huntley Hills annexation and the Gainsborough annexation from 2010. I was not paying attention, quite frankly. I was busy fighting with DeKalb County. For 2012, 2013, the city staff at the time did a back of the napkin, or back of the envelope math on it and went Plaza Fiesta, Century Center, 85 Access Road. Yeah, there's going to be enough commercial there to handle 15,000 residents. Yeah, we got this. I don't think the math is as easily done as quickly this time. I think before we get on the bandwagon and go to and really, quite frankly, start lobbying our state reps to do this, we need more information. That's it from the history teacher.
Okay. Kristen, how long do you think it would take to pull together those numbers?
So I know of two potential groups that do this specific type of analysis. I mean, we have, as you know, we have a very limited ability in-house to pull the information. We have a start based off of demographic data, GIS data, public data that we can pull from the county. I'm hesitant to give you a full timeline because I don't know. I'm waiting to hear back from the groups that I've reached out to. I would think that it would probably take a couple of months for them to do a full analysis, because they'd probably have to look at not only the revenue side, but also interview staff, talk about operations, and all of that. And I would think that would probably take a couple of months. So
And I would point out, we don't have this budgeted at all, so what would the cost be? We need to know that as well before we move forward.
If you're talking about Carl Vinson as one of them, the number that generally was bandied about for their city projects was 10 to 15,000.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, was probably about 15,000 or so to try to pull this information together. We circle back to, though, at this point, on Tuesday, we have to make a decision whether we continue to keep the conversation going or whether we don't. I think, from my conversations with the legislative hierarchy, if we brought this to them the first week of January, it would probably be March or April before they would actually be able to take action on it. And then after that, it has to move to the governor's desk, and that's why there was concern that it probably wouldn't make it to a May ballot, even if we wanted that, which it sounds like we certainly don't. But even if we wanted that, the governor probably wouldn't land on his desk. He wouldn't sign it till probably May, so we would miss that window of opportunity anyway. So what I'm hearing, though, is that if it's just that this isn't the right time and we just don't want to do it, that's one thing, and we can just say that. If it's about the finances of it and would this area pay for itself and what would that look like, and what I'm hearing from the city manager is 2 months. We are in November, so what I'm hearing is about the same time that the legislature would take it up and discuss it, we should have all of that data and those numbers by early January. We should have all that information.
Mr. Mayor, I would say at best we would have it by the beginning of March. We have a couple of holidays coming up and all these places are shut down. It is ramp-up time to even get on their calendar.
Yeah.
So if we beg and plead, we might have a first meeting with them sometime in December.
Yeah.
They're not going to start working before January.
Right.
So if it's 2 months of work,
Right.
it's the beginning of March before we
Right.
have the information, not January.
Right. Well, I may have misspoke. That's what I'm saying is having spoken with the legislators, they don't project that they would get this done before near the end of the session. So again, my thought on the matter is if you put this out, if the city manager puts this out to Carl Vinson or whoever to get a study done, even with the holidays included, we should have the financial component that we need by the middle of February, March, whatever, before this ever makes it to the governor's desk. And I'm not saying we want we want to give hope and put something out there. Leslie, stop kicking that thing.
I'm not kicking it, it's falling on me.
Put hope out there and then, and then pull it later, but absolutely not making a decision to move forward is a decision to not do anything this year, no matter what the financial data would come back and say. So, again, just my thoughts.
I will add just a point of clarification. So the reason why we said November, to your point, Mayor, is that because of the time it would take to get through, to get on the calendar for the legislative session, you'd want to introduce the bill as soon as possible. So the earliest you can do that is January, right? The week that session starts. And so from an advertising standpoint, we would need December to advertise it. That way it could be introduced as early as possible. You could theoretically, not that this, I'm not recommending this, I'm not saying that this is the best way to do it, but you could take it up again. It's just, it would be introduced later in the legislative session, which that obviously changes a lot of things too. So from a timing standpoint, if they're gonna take it up, they need to take it up as early as possible.
Right.
For me, the main thing, I want to make sure say it again, is this the last opportunity? Like if Tuesday, will that be the last opportunity? Like if we decide to move forward on Tuesday, we're all in and we're going all the way to the finish line? Or will there be chances to stop the process if we were to find out something that we didn't want to hear or this body didn't want to hear anymore? I mean, that's what terrifies me, is on Tuesday, if once we go down the hill, we can't stop the thing anymore after this, or if we can, there will be opportunities. So that's really the answer. That's really that simple for me.
I'm going to jump in. If the goal is in order to keep this thing moving through the session, to have a bill introduced so that it at least gets a number assigned to it and starts going in that process, which has to happen by the middle of January, then yeah, we have to vote this up or down on Tuesday.
If we wanted to get additional financial information.
But if you want a bill in front of the legislature for next session, we would have to vote this through on Tuesday, advertise that we are going to file for that bill with the state legislature in December. Now, we have up until there is a floor vote on that bill to have it yanked or killed. But it's a hand grenade with the pin out.
It's a what?
It's a hand grenade with the pin out once we vote this through on Tuesday. It's moving through. We can pull it somewhere down the road, potentially up until it hits the floor for a vote at the State House. But if we vote on it, but we're going through all the steps like it is to ask the state legislature to file a bill for us.
Well, so we can pull it, but then so can the legislature if
Well,
we don't have the
a legislator
numbers.
has to pull it.
They may-
We can ask them nicely.
Voting this through is just voting our wishes to continue moving it forward. There's no assurity that the legislature is even going to assign a number to it. You've got to get enough votes from the delegation, and that's there's no assurities either way. The only assurity is if we don't vote yes on Tuesday, that this is not going to move forward this session. That's the only thing we're assured of.
And if I remember correctly, which some of you may contest that I'm correct, but I think the first annexation that I was involved in was north of where I live up to Interstate 285. And the second one was south to Interstate 85. And I don't think that we had all the numbers when it was put before the legislature. I think that we're still working on that.
Elmer said that earlier.
I can only speak to the Dresden East Claremont, and that was one where it was the residents that actually went to the legislature for the bill. The City Hall staff Mark Johnson specifically, did quick math and went, yeah, this will be fine. There was no in-depth. The upside of it was that because of the actions during the creations of the City of Brookhaven, there had been some analysis done, and somehow some of that data was made available. So there was some hard information out there.
But we've also had some analysis done, not necessarily on the whole, what is being asked to be annexed now, but there has been some analysis done to date as well.
Just some very rudimentary as far as I know.
I get that.
How many people came in for the Huntley Hills, Gainsborough annexation? Do you remember?
It was around 7,000, 8,000. I can look, if you, let
And
me
then-
dig from my notebook, I think I have the
And then for
numbers.
the deck annexation? it's about
16.
16?
Yeah. So we
Right,
doubled
so-
and then doubled.
Almost doubled it both times.
Yeah, so the first annexation, we were taking into consideration 7,000 people living in Chamblee. The second annexation is 14,000 people, and now we're representing probably close to 40,000 people, adding 18.5. So it's a lot more people that we have to take into consideration this is going to affect than just this old Chamblee. So from a historical standpoint, I understand what you guys are saying, but we've matured. I need this data to make this decision going forward, to say it makes sense to bring in this large of an area. And if you guys remember, the previous annexation, that was going to be the largest annexation ever in the history of Georgia, and now we're doubling that. I need more data. I just can't sit here and say this is great for the city and for our 40,000 citizens, quote unquote, that we have right now, and it's not going to impact the services that they have. I just can't do it.
And I think we've heard that we will be able to get the data, maybe not by Tuesday, but before this is, that's what I've heard. If I'm wrong, then
I will also say my preference was for 26. I'm happy to go down that 26, but.
So I'd just like to thank everybody. This is exactly, when I pushed for this, when we had the retreat, this is exactly what I wanted us to do, is have this discussion out here in public like this. And so thanks to everybody for that. And also I just want to tell anybody that lives in Chamblee or in the annex area we're talking about, I need to see emails. I need to see them. Everybody up here needs to see them. Your state legislature needs to see them. It needs to come from y'all. We were successful because folks like Elmer stepped up in our neighborhood and made it happen. So thank you. Please do that. Let me know either way.
Before Tuesday.
Anything else?
Doesn't it feel like we're rushed?
We're always rushed.
Always,
Not if we do it in 26.
always.
All the time in the world.
We've always been rushed.
This is a work session and not a council meeting, so we're a little bit more flexible with our rules of decorum. I saw some folks that I know was here wanting to speak just get up and leave. I would like to ask if there's anyone that is here that would like to speak either for or against, if they would like to take a moment to come up and address council real quick. Just tell us who you are and your name and address.
Hi, my name is Brooke Caballero. I live at 3346 Embry Circle. I'm also the president of Embry Hills Club. I feel partially responsible that you haven't had enough emails in favor. And although I don't speak for the members of the club, I speak for myself when I say that I'm strongly in favor of this annexation for many reasons. Sitting here listening to you all discuss it, I felt that an analysis should have already been completed if we had already started the process previously and were unsuccessful. So to hear that we still have to go through a financial analysis before this annexation can be evaluated as a positive thing for the city of Chamblee is a little bit discouraging. However, what I would like to point out is that our area is growing. We are attracting new businesses that are opening every day and existing businesses renovating. And I do think that there is a positive upside for the city of Chamblee with this annexation. I also think that, and I can't speak for the members, but what I can tell you is the conversations that I've had with many of the people in our neighborhood. And I will tell you that the majority are in favor of being annexed into Chamblee. And those who haven't decided, I won't say they're not in favor, they haven't decided. They still have questions and concerns, And I am committed. If we can get this out for vote, I am committed to hosting those meetings in our neighborhood and educating people on the pros and cons of this annexation. And we are a patient community. We have been in unincorporated DeKalb our entire home ownership. So we have no choice but to be patient. So if it takes a minute for you all to hire new police officers and figure out the sanitation piece of it, as long as you keep us informed about what that process is looking like and where we're going, we are patient. And we are a community that comes together and stands up and works together, and we're here to see this through. So I will be sending out a number of text messages and asking them to send you those emails. And I'm sorry that you've seen more negative than positive emails, because I don't think that that is the case for the majority of our homeowners in our neighborhood.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Anyone else here wishing to speak on this item?
Good evening. My name is Vicki Hood. I live at 3154 Chamblee Tucker Road in unincorporated DeKalb and have there almost my entire adult life. I am a part of the community, of course, and I haven't seen any change as being in unincorporated DeKalb. And working on this last year made me very hopeful for the future. Working with my community members, and the talks and the conversations that we had, and it's unfortunate that we did not get as many participants, I think, as needed, and I think that's something that we can focus on from our community members as well. I was very dismayed this year. I've participated on a lot of study committees. I've participated in all things DeKalb, and dismayed this year because none of the District 7 people who ran for county commissioner, which is our district, reached out to our area. I think there were 6 or 7 people running for that. They still have not reached out. I don't even really know. Well, yes, I do know who's running, but there's been no outreach. And that really concerns me for the future. And again, I do know we'll still be in unincorporated DeKalb, even if we were to be annexed into the city of Chamblee. But I prefer local government, someone that I can come to here in Chamblee, someone who actually drives through our streets and lives in our community. And I think that will be the best function that we can have. DeKalb County government is too big. It's too big for us, for our area. And having local government would, I think, be so beneficial to our area and to the city, to the citizens of Chamblee as well. So I appreciate the conversation, and I appreciate you guys thinking about this resolution. And I hope that we see you again, and hope it's a big positive news. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor or against this item?
Good evening. My name is Bill Blumberg. I live at 3312 North Embry Circle, and it's a pleasure to see most of you again. Kristen, it's nice to meet you for the first time, and I hope we get to talk more in the future. I live in the area that you all have been discussing and have lived there since 2018. In fact, next month I will begin my 7th year living in this community, and I absolutely love it. I understand some of the concerns that you all have raised, and I'm a little bit surprised, as Brooke mentioned, that some of the heavy lifting hasn't been done already before getting to this point. It sounds like from comments you made, Jimmy, that what was originally proposed last year has probably doubled in size. So that, of course, is also a surprise to me, and I'm not against it. I'm just curious to learn more. So I guess one thing is, when I ask what has changed, purely, it sounds like the footprint has changed, which, of course, increased your costs. Totally understand that. Happy to help, right? I hope what hasn't changed are some of the opportunities to capture areas like Mercer University and to build what you all referred to as a gateway to the city from 2 major interstates. That still should exist, and I certainly hope it does. I understand there's a change in DeKalb leadership coming, but I'll be honest with you, for the people who live in my neighborhood, it's not a change. It's the same people still running the same mess. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it out loud, right? And so I don't see things getting better for us. And however they choose to propose whatever solutions they're going to come forward with, I'm not seeing a lot of those impact my community, okay? The other thing I think we should consider, as you all are talking about what to do next Tuesday, let's just face it, we live in a society where complacency is absolutely pervasive right now. People are paying attention to what's on their feed in front of them today. They're not going to remember all of this a year from now. They're going to get more comfortable with less services. They're going to get more comfortable with the status quo, and we're going to be fighting a much bigger uphill battle if we have to do this again next year. To that, I will offer, and Brooke talked about this, we've had conversations. I sit on the Civic Association board. Brooke and I have shared conversations around creating a neighborhood-driven whiteboarding exercise where we are going to get the community to talk about the pros and cons of something like this, the community to decide and communicate with each other how this will benefit the community. It's not going to be people like me and Brooke sitting there telling them what's good for them. They're going to be telling themselves. This is going to be a grassroots effort. But we're not going to go through that effort now and then be told a year from now is when we're going to come back and visit this subject, because as I just mentioned, that won't be on their feed. So I encourage you guys to think very strongly about what action you want to take Tuesday. The community will support it, but only if it's going to result in some near-term opportunity. Thank you.
Anyone else here wishing to speak on this item? Don't see anyone else for or against. I will add that I think at least I received a couple of emails today from folks that are further down. As mentioned, the footprint of this has grown. It extends the entirety, what I looked at, extended the entirety down Briar Cliff all the way to Claremont, which was something that we had discussed last year and the year before, but had looked at it in phases and sections. And, I think if you're doing 60%, doing something in phases and sections makes a lot of sense. If you're trying to get something on the ballot, just taking the bite and letting it do what it does is probably the best opportunity. All of the areas, I will add, that are drawn into this map where, as far as I can remember, don't quote me on this 100%, but I believe every district, every voting precinct in that area on the map that I saw voted yes to cityhood when it was the La Vista Hills or whatever that last cityhood was. The areas that sunk that effort last time was outside of those boundaries. So I think folks over there are hungry for a change all the way down. I just did want to add that, some folks could not make it here tonight, but they were still very positive to me that they would, the same thing that Brooke and Bill said about their neighborhood, I was told about neighborhoods much further down that they would take this on and run it as if they were running for their lives. So I'm confident that the groundswell would be there. Any other comments on this item before we move on? Anybody else? All right. Thank you all for being here. We'll move on down to the Dresden Plaster Special Services discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. So this item was discussed a couple months ago. I think this has been a topic that's been floating out there for a while. This is a discussion just to have tonight before we move forward with putting together a resolution for your consideration of the establishment of a special services district in the Dresden Plaster area. You'll hear a little bit more later this evening from John Maximek and his team about the small area plan that we've completed in this area. And this this special services district, I'm going to get those two intertwined probably a little bit. This special services district would overlay that small area plan that was done So just some idea of the map. This is the area of consideration to establish the Special Services District. And so for those who needs a little bit of clarification on what a Special Services District is a special tax district to do some additional projects and provide some additional services in that designated area. So this is what we are proposing for us to move forward with. If you guys would like to consider the establishment of a Dresden Plaster Special Services District, we wanted just to get some input on this map here. If this is what you are okay with and you still want to move forward with this, we will draft a resolution and present that to you in December, but just wanted to open up for an opportunity for discussion this evening. And just for some additional data on this, there are approximately 288 parcels in this map area, and I'll switch back to the map in just a moment. 50 are commercial, 238 are residential. And of course, like I said, we wouldn't pass the resolution until potentially December, and then you wouldn't set a millage rate on this until June of next year when we set our regular millage rate for the city. So we would have to do this before the end of the year so that we could get the tax data to send over to the county when they establish the tax digest, and so that we can determine how we would like to proceed on implementing any kind of additional tax levy on the area. So I'll switch back over to the map for your view as well.
All right. Questions or comments from council?
I love this map. I love the idea of this. I brought it forward, so of course I do. So there's that. But the reason behind this, just to rekindle everybody's, the last conversation that we had was that we're dropping approximately $13 million into Dresden Park. It's one of the most dense areas in the entire city, along Plaster, along Buford Highway there. So we can add beautification to this, we can add safety, and then we can also the upkeep for that park. If you remember in the budget conversations, one of the Jody's asked was to have somebody based out of Dresden Park in South Chamblee that would be able to keep the area beautified, much like Dan does today. The SSD could absolutely pay for that position, along with extra security, and sidewalks, transportation projects, all the things that we're looking for in this particular area. We annexed this area 10 years ago. I'm constantly hearing from our residents that they feel like the redheaded stepchild on that side. Whether it's true or not, that's up for debate. We've actually put a lot of money into this area. It's slow. That's how it works. But that is why I believe this SSD will have a lot of benefits for this particular area.
And I agree with what Jimmy said as far as this being a good map, and then reference the comment, the redhead stepchild. I think some of that goes with our former mayor, Mayor Clarkson, used to talk about private dollars follow public dollars, and I think this is a way to increase above and beyond what we already did, public dollars. So more private dollars come in, which then lifts, and then use another saying, rising tide lifts all boats, all that stuff. So I think it goes hand in hand, and it makes the community, the business guys, want to invest more in there if they see the city's investing in that area. So that's why I think this is a good idea.
We need to write down all.
And I wished I thought of it first.
We need to write down all of the sayings we've done. Grenade with the no pin, gun to the head, redhead stepchild, rising tides raise all boats.
Perhaps one or two we shouldn't repeat.
Yes.
All right. Any other discussion on this item?
I think it's a needed item for this area. There's a ton of projects that, and it's just, in the great volume of things, to be able to focus some funding to just start knocking some of the things out would be fantastic for the area overall. I mean, we have put a lot of it between Dresden Park, between the Public Safety Building, Arrow Creek. We've done a tremendous amount, but it really is just the start for what we need to do.
And just skipping down the agenda here, we do have a Dresden Park small area plan this could potentially help fund.
Yeah. Everything good costs a little bit of money. Nothing good is free. And, I think our downtown SSD is already showing its value. And so I am 100% in favor of this map. I think it's well put together, and support it. Any other comments on this? All right.
As I said before, I wished I'd thought of it before Jimmy did, but other than that,
My one good idea for this year.
Rising tide lifts all boats. Yeah. But does it wash away PTVs? We are back to our tree permit sign ordinance, and I guess we need to determine if we're going to move this forward for a first read on Tuesday. Is that going to be council's desire? Or?
I think just was in the packet was just the little paragraph that was in red is really the entire extent of this sign ordinance, is it not? I mean, is it? There was, in the agenda packet, it had one little paragraph that was highlighted in red.
That's right, yeah.
And that was the change to this tree ordinance, and it didn't seem like it was very government overreachy or any of that stuff. It sounded like it was just really basic, put up a sign within 5 days, and then there's an exclusion for hazardous tree from having to do that.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
That was it.
Oh, I was going to add that John and his team have put together a standard operating procedure that we will review if you guys want to move this forward. It's pretty simple, but it is essentially going to mirror the process for the public hearing signs that we put out when we have a zoning matter. Staff would actually install those signs rather than giving them to the applicant to then install those signs and so on and so forth. Obviously, that's not codified, so, but we have.
Yes, I was going to ask about that because I guess there's a way you can apply for the tree permit online, is there not? Yes.
Yep.
So you would, then the staff would put them out rather than having to make a trip into.
And we would ask the applicant to return the signs at the appropriate time.
Gotcha. And is there any discussion on the fact that they don't put the signs out? Is there like a penalty for not putting the sign out, or is it just kind of keep their neighbors from being mad at them? Yes, the city knows about this. Leave me alone, or what's?
Well, I guess that's why the staff is proposing to put the signs out ourselves.
Right. Oh, okay. That eliminates not putting them out. Okay.
Yeah.
I already answered my own question. Sorry.
Right.
I was just thinking 3 steps ahead when I wasn't paying attention. So yes, that's.
If it got removed, it would obviously be a code enforcement violation. What's that? If it got removed for any reason, it would be a violation of our code. So code enforcement would be able to pursue it.
I can see it
If
now.
that
The
had to
people who
happen.
want to save the trees will go out and re-yank the signs up so they can't be cut down and then chain themselves to the trees and all that. Todd's got to get them off the tree.
Any other discussion on this item? Is it council's wish to move this to first read? All right.
Do you need a motion or just consent?
Are you good?
We're good with not, we don't need a motion, right? Just, okay. All right. Under staff action items this evening, the first up is the sustainability roadmap.
So there is no big presentation. McKinstry came and presented to you all last month what that sustainability roadmap looks like. The final plan is in your packet, and so we are asking for you guys to consider adoption of that sustainability roadmap now that it is finalized and completed, and he's been able to talk through it with each of you.
Very good. Questions from council on this item? All right. Development review process assessment.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request for the council to authorize the mayor to sign an agreement with Matrix Consulting to assess our development review process as well as our business licensing process. We've had a number of conversations about this just as a good opportunity to reset, look for some bottlenecks, get some best practices, talk to our business community on both sides of the licensing and permitting operation. They're estimating it to take approximately 3 to 4 months. We would like to begin this at the beginning of 2025 with a cost not to exceed $65,000, and this has been included in the proposed budget for 2025. I will note that we got quotes from 3 different firms, and this was, I don't believe this was the lowest. Was it? This was the lowest, yes. So this is the lowest of the 3. I think the highest one was about $120,000. So.
Good. Questions from council on this item? All right. We have the SS4A Safety Action Plan.
Good evening. Todd Hill, Director of Public Works. On September 12th this year, a request for proposal was issued for the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan, which is designed to address roadway safety. The purpose of this initiative is to develop comprehensive strategic plans aimed at eliminating roadway fatalities and serious injuries for all roadway users within our city. We had 3 companies submit proposals. They were Chamblee Horn, Foresight Group, and Tool Design. City staff reviewed all 3 proposals, and if you'll, Kristen, if you can go to the next slide. As you can see above, the scoring matrix was presented, and Chamblee Horn scored 89, Foresight Group scored 83, and Tool Design scored 96. Based on these scores, staff is recommending that the city move forward with awarding the Safe Streets and Roads for All Safety Action Plan design to Tool Design in the amount of $299,935. This project will be funded with federal funds from the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant that we received earlier this year, with a total project cost of $300,000, with $240,000 provided by the grant and $60,000 matched by the city. Any questions?
One thing I would like to note too is I believe Tool Design is the one who's doing the Buford Highway Safe Streets for All Safety Action Plan.
Yes,
A lot of words.
That is
So
correct.
there's some continuity there with having the same group.
Was the 60 grand in the budget meeting that we just had? I don't remember one way or the other.
You guys included it in your budget for, yeah. It's a rollover because I think we budgeted for it this year as well.
Yes, we did.
In anticipation of receiving the grant, so it'll move into next year.
And is the company Chamblee Horn that scored at 89 in the scoring matrix, by chance, were they 240,000?
All the applicants were within a couple of $1,000s of each other.
Gotcha. I didn't know if maybe that's why.
So basically, cost was not an issue because of how close they were in their pricing.
Any other questions? Thank you, Todd.
Thanks.
We have Charles Abbott and Associates contract extension.
Mayor, this is a contract extension. As you know, we currently have a contract with Charles Abbott and Associates to provide our development services. They currently, the cost structure for that is a 50% share of the revenue for permits. This would just continue that same contract with the exception that we are requesting some additional arborist, some labor hours from a certified arborist, excuse me. I think that's the biggest piece that we're changing for this, is just an additional allocation of time for a certified arborist up to 10 to 20 hours per week. We are definitely seeing a greater need for certified arborist work with all the projects and developments and things we have going on in the city. So we wanted to ensure that we had proper coverage with appropriate personnel. This would be a 1-year contract extension with the option to renew for 2 additional years.
So we don't pay for what we don't use, right?
Correct, right? It's hourly, John, for the arborist.
Okay.
There are the other positions that we have included in the contract: the land development manager, the soil erosion inspector, and the senior engineer. We pay a monthly fee for those folks, and they're here. I think a couple of them are full time, one is half time.
Yeah, one is full-time and the 2 others are part-time.
Questions from council? All right, thank you. We have the Dresden Park Small Area Plan.
All right, Mayor and Council, this is the Dresden Park Small Area Plan, and I'm really pleased to be here to announce that we're presenting the final plan that we've been working on in-house since July of 2023. We're going to tell you all about it and give you a pretty detailed idea of what we came up with for this plan. A small area plan is basically a mini comprehensive plan. It identifies issues and opportunities so that we can offer some level of protection and improvement for the Dresden-Plaster area that you saw just a few minutes ago with the district proposal. And so this is an area that we were directed to focus on last year, and we decided that we would work on this on an in-house basis and use the resources of our team. And so really pleased that we pulled that together. I'll tell you more about how we came up with that. But it is basically a hard look at what the issues and opportunities are for this area by the community for the community. And, you know, like I always believe, if you put it down on paper, it tends to happen. So this is a matter of simply of getting a start and putting these ideas down on paper and trying to prioritize them. So to that end, there were a list of recommendations that came out earlier this summer that we vetted with the council and with our advisory committee, and those recommendations have not changed. So we were spending time since then putting together the rest of the plan so that it reads in a complete way. And so what we're here today is to give you the whole picture of this plan, including those recommendations. But what we'd also like to do is to tell you that the complete plan is coming your way as a deliverable on Tuesday so that you can approve it on Tuesday. The area that we're working with is, of course, the same area that we talked about before. This is a map of the planning area. It looks very familiar to what you just saw. It is roughly bounded by Buford Highway, Shalford Road, I-85, and Dresden and Plaster. And within the study area, the neighborhood land uses are as follows. Roughly, let's see here, 40% high and medium residential, 19% low density residential in yellow. You have 13% institutional with Dresden Park, Dresden Elementary, Arrow Creek Complex, and St. Pius High School along I-85. So that's a snapshot for those out there in the audience and those who might not be so familiar with this as the council is. Key planning topics were very similar to what you find in a comprehensive plan, you know, housing and quality of life, transportation, land use, recreation and green space, and beautification and placemaking. So a lot of the things that we asked people had to do with these topics. So how did this plan come together? We built this plan in a number of different ways. We went and did an online survey and also a physical copy survey in English and Spanish. And we had links to the survey posted on yard signs throughout the study area and on flyers. We had advisory committee input, and we had pop-up events at Dresden Park and Plaza Fiesta. We decided to take the plan to where people are, and we had a good time in doing that. It's in the tradition of what we're doing with the neighborhood engagement program, asking people what they want. And neighborhood number 5 and number 6 share this study area. So we hope to continue to work on plan implementation with our involvement with the neighborhood engagement program. So if you're wondering about a crossover there, we've got it covered. We had public meetings, traditional public meetings. Some of you were there. We had a working website and, of course, staff analysis, including synthesis of existing plans that touched on this area. So that's how the plan came together. And what we heard was very interesting. And overall, there were 2 main themes. One was about housing. So of the survey respondents, just them, 64% said that they found that the housing was either unaffordable or very unaffordable. And then there were concerns, too, about the quality of the housing. Not all of it, but some of it. Some people were very satisfied with the housing. And then the second piece is transportation infrastructure, namely the walkability of the area. And so a lot of it had to do with taking a place that was built years ago for the automobile and retrofitting it for walkability and sort of evening the playing field like we're doing in lots of other parts of the city. So the two main things were housing and walkability where transportation is concerned. So I'm going to get into a couple of some of the other things in detail. And like I said, since we are wrapping the plan, and we do want to share this with the community, it'll be somewhat detailed, but there'll be even more details in the final report, and more details about how we came to these conclusions. But for housing, we'll look to do a marketing analysis to determine exactly which sites are best for rehabilitation and or redevelopment. And we'll work closely with our GIC partners on this and for them. And again, just like neighborhood engagement program, we're tied at the hip on that. We're working to make sure that this plan is a tool for what GIC needs to do should the GIC program and the council decide to, press go and work in this area for housing. So figuring out which sites are important, first thing based on a market analysis, and then determining which tools to apply and how and where. We'll also look to enhance code enforcement more than we're already doing, and then coordinate with our non-governmental partners as well. And we found there would be a lot of support for that in this area. Now, transportation second. And like I said, a lot of it had to do with walkability, and a lot of that is already in progress because of what our capital program is doing in that area. The first thing we do is to dust off the 2019 mobility plan, mobility study, just to make sure that we have covered all the intersections and they match with that plan. Second would be to address traffic control at Dresden Elementary School, which is underway already with the redevelopment of the school now, which wasn't underway when we started last year. And then the speed enforcement, and that has to do with police department, but it also has to do with how the roads are striped and how we control traffic and what the streets look like in order to control speed. A couple of other transportation-related priorities, improving connectivity between Dresden Park and Arrow Creek Park, and then also filling in gaps of pedestrian and bike network and construct new sidewalks, taking into account our existing trail plan that aims to reach so many people. And then a minor way is to make sure that we restore a connection over the bridge between St. Pius High School and the refurbished Dresden Park at some point. Something you hear about consolidating curb cuts. Well, what does that mean? It means that in a car-oriented built environment, it was not uncommon to open up lots of different places for roads. That's not exactly always good for pedestrians, so we would look to consolidate some curb cuts. And then also to improve MARTA bus stop areas. Another thing that we found that's a little bit more bold, but somewhat kind of interesting, and I think I have a graphic for this, is to try to identify a connection. See if I can find it. Sorry, I apologize. I don't have a graphic of it, but it's to provide a street connection between Johnson Road and Northeast Expressway with a connector road through 2628, the Chateau Montaigne Apartments. And so, again, this is taking and retrofitting car-oriented built environment and making it better for pedestrians and making more connections for cars. And there's a couple of other places like that too. And we would also work with neighboring multifamily properties to enhance their connections. It's not uncommon to find in this area, if you get on the ground and start walking around, lots of informal pathways. We heard of pathways, someone sketched lines across this area, roughly from Johnson Road all the way to Buford, of ways that people are walking right now to get to where they want to go. Sometimes breaking down fences to get there. This is just human nature. This is, when people walk, they tend to walk the shortest distances. So what we found is to try to work with where people want to go and try to provide sidewalks for them. And so we learned by that. The next is land use. Not surprisingly, strategic redevelopment of certain properties if the conditions are right. And then also to find to identify opportunities where we can look at the specific areas and create zoning specifically for certain intersections. When you look at a place like Johnson Road and Plaster, we think there's an opportunity to design buildings for future land uses around that area that incorporate lots of needs and to change the whole tenor of that place based on the roads that we have there. And so this is just a snapshot of what that form-based zoning might look like in that area. We'd like to work with St. Pius High School. They're currently doing a strategic plan right now, and we've signed up to be part of that process. In turn, we've identified some of their parking issues. They're buying up land. They have been buying up land for parking, and we'd like to sort of get involved with that and sort of harness what they're doing there and try to integrate that with what the community wants. The community is very conscious of what St. Pius does, and so we made sure that they were part of this planning process. And then encouraging redevelopment of the Shalford Road Gateway area, and including larger scale neighborhood serving commercial uses. For recreation, the planning effort resulted in findings that there's a need for more green space and more pedestrian amenities for residents. One specific idea that came out of this was a pocket park for Dresden Court and Plaster intersection. This is just to whet your appetite about what a pocket park might look like, because we found a lot of parents waiting for a bus drop-off or pickup in this area, and something like this would enhance the pedestrian experience and create a better place for people to congregate. And then another idea, very separate but related to something I mentioned before, is to conduct a stream bank restoration between Dresden Park and Arrow Creek Park to make that connection better. And then for beautification and placemaking, the fifth and last major area, when you look at the work program, you'll find a number of ideas, including a grant program to assist property owners with beautification and renovation efforts, removing invasive and overgrown landscaping throughout the area, and then coming up with a more detailed maintenance list, regular maintenance list for existing curbs, potholes, striping, and signage. In our site visits, in our look at this area, we found that there's a lot of things that that can be done for the neighborhood, and we want to get that done in a more uniform way. So we purposely did not do this on our own. We reached out to many people and started with recognizing the resources we had in-house, not only in the planning and development department, but with all of our colleagues in other departments, and they were really great to work with. When we found that when we work together, we can do great things as departments. I want to recognize Gabrielle Peters, though, because Gabrielle was the project manager for this whole project, and she saw it through and maintained it from month to month and coordinated all the efforts of not only our team, and we all worked on it, but with the other departments. So I want to recognize her for great work. And thank you. We also had a Citizens Advisory Committee, and I want to recognize them by name because we really want to cultivate a planning culture and a culture of involvement in the city. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Guadalupe Sotelo from Keep Chamblee Beautiful, Christina Bolanos from Dresden Elementary School Education Foundation, Nikki Vandergritten from Keep Chamblee Beautiful, Blaise Wanamaker from St. Pius, Kate Henry from Chamblee Housing Committee, Stephanie Correas, Los Vecinos de Buford Highway, and Virginia Cosgrove from Cross Cultural Ministries, Jessica Bamaca from Fundación El Delante, Guatemala, Ruth Ann North from Presencia, also from Presencia, Bethany Anderson, Celia Robles Lobes from Sienna Ridge, Soang Liu from Valley Oaks Property Managers, and Marielle Risner Sivley from St. Vincent de Paul Society. So we recognize them and we thank them for their involvement. So I can answer any questions you might have. Otherwise, you'll see the written report, and we'll take this up on Tuesday.
John, a lot to take in on a late Thursday evening. Any questions, comments from council?
So I found that one slide that said affordable housing and the condition of the housing put in the same slide. Interesting, because it seems like what we heard when we were doing the sweeps for the apartment complexes, that if we brought them up to standards, the rates would be increased. So it seems like it's a competing interest. And I'm not saying we don't want to have safe and good condition houses, but it seems like if you're going to start making people, keep their houses up, then they're probably going to pass the cost on to the end user. That's what typically I think happens. And so it's just interesting that they were put in the same slide. I also want to say that I noticed that they made staff seem to make observations at different times of the day. Like you said, there were some people pocket parked for the people waiting on the school buses and stuff was a need. So that I think that's important too, because how your community's used changes throughout the day. You may have one set of circumstances at 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the morning, then you have another set of circumstances, in the afternoon, and then you may even have a later night or, after work, situation that changes. And I think that's always a challenge, especially with people who work 9 to 5-ish in a job, as to what happens in your city and those other hours that's not 9 to 5. And so it seemed like some effort was made for that, to accommodate that in this plan. So I appreciate that.
That's good points. Right.
Anything else? Thank you, John. Good job. Thank you, Gabrielle. All right, we have circled back down to 4970 Buford Highway. Any questions for this very patient applicant?
Christine, can you pull up slide 174?
Sure. See, I don't have the numbers. What are you looking for?
Our packet is going to be different than what he has access to.
Oh, the triangle. Yeah. Oh, I can find it. It's the satellite with the triangle. Oh, okay.
Earlier, I was looking for it. I said, the technical drawings were kind of cross-eying on me, and so I have trouble. So I pulled it up on Google Earth, and then anyway, I eventually figured this out. But so one of the conditions that you had was, a pedestrian connection to the apartment complex. And looking at on satellite view on that triangle, I'm like, how in the heck is that going to happen?
So,
I know about that topo change. It goes.
yeah, so it would be in the north corner of the triangle, at the shortest distance between Carroll Circle and that truck driveway. So,
Which, according to this, is not on his property.
well, you would, the idea is that a sidewalk could go on the applicant's property all the way to the corner, the north corner of the triangle, and then form a stub or a full connection to the adjacent private property of Carroll Circle. If I had a pointer, I'd show it to you. I can show
Do you see any problem with that as far as the topography? Because I'm not seeing it according to the Google Maps and how it lines up. And I mean, it looks like your property ends at the back of the building. So I don't know who owns the rest of that property. Sure.
So we were thinking that it would be a sidewalk that runs from here all the way along that driveway and then form a stub to reach here. And there's no buildings, it's just.
The stub is my question, because it's not, who's going to build that stub since it's not on his property? His property ends there. How would you get from there to there?
Here we go. We have it projected now so everybody can
On the
see.
screens.
Yeah, run the sidewalk just to this property edge.
I can't see what you're showing, but we have it up on the screen.
You can use your pointer now.
Don't have one. I need to.
Oh. It's that point up there, the top point up there, Paul. There's a good bit of distance between, it has to cross, from my memory, it's been a while since I've been over there, but there's a pretty steep grade change. It drops down, and then you're having to cross somebody else's property, which looks like it's the apartment complex's property to get to the road. I guess it's, I was just not trying to make a big deal out of it. When you said it, I was like, how in the heck is that going to work? So. Paul wants me to repeat myself because I didn't have my microphone on. But I just didn't see how that was going to, I just don't see how that's going to work. I think he needs to put the sidewalk down, but I think with the part that you said was to do pedestrian access to the apartment complex. And I was like, well, I mean, I guess it could happen, but.
So let me explain what I told you at the counter there. The idea would be that there'd be a sidewalk that runs along the triangle to the top of the triangle to the edge of the applicant's property and no further, and therefore forms a stub for future connection one day if something changes on the land use next door.
I didn't hear the future part. I heard that it would be connected.
Well, if we had voluntary, we would ask, but if we had voluntary cooperation to form a connection there, we would do it now. But
in a budget discussion that we would have to figure at a later date.
yeah, but it's a short distance for, and arguably a pretty decent connection.
I would also note that the trail master plan runs north of this property, and I'll quote from the master plan itself: the trail that interacts with the multifamily residential development, which is not the one we're talking about today, to provide access to the city farmers market and adjacent restaurants, a highly desired destination approved for the highway. So this will continue that connectivity that way.
Again,
Yeah.
I'm not arguing that
Whether
he should do this or not about the sidewalk, but I just was missing the piece when it said, because it sounded to me like it was a done deal, like this, we're going to do this so this will be provided, as opposed to future. And I think for me the key word was future.
Yeah,
and I think we've talked about it long enough for my satisfaction.
No, I think you helped to clarify it because it wasn't very detailed. So thank you.
Any other questions on this item?
I think one other comment, well, the applicant's asking for a variance on reduction in parking. I think I would like to see an agreement in place with the property owners for city's farmers market What I don't want to have is, a year after this building opens, City Farmers Market coming and pulling a permit to start booting people because his customers are parked over there. So I think if we can get that worked out now, that will save everybody a bunch of headaches down the road.
Okay.
Anything else?
I mean, I agree with what Elmer just said. That parking lot gets full.
City Farmers.
The parking lot at the, if you're facing the farmer's market at the left end, where the food court building is.
Food terminal,
and-
Dish Korean.
Food terminal, I'm sorry. That gets very full.
Tum Tum Puck Puck or what?
So I'm a little bit worried about that. Also, I could hardly understand what we have been given presentation-wise, so it's a little bit hard for me. But this is not include, where's Beaufort Highway? Is it this green line
Yep.
right here?
Yep.
Okay. So we're not talking about shared parking with this.
And this little road that runs
Right,
down there.
and that's the road, and this is the remodeled place that's a restaurant. And that's not part of this property.
Correct.
Something, what we're talking about is right in here, and somewhere over here. Okay. All right.
No, like I mentioned before, I would like to recognize the applicant for their willingness to provide the crosswalk from their property to City Farmers.
And I agree with that, because that's a very strange little area back in there. Very strange. So I agree with that, for sure.
Any other comments or questions? All right.
Sure would be nice to get it cleaned up.
Thank you for sticking around. Appreciate it. All right, and next up is 3443 Caswick Court, stream buffer. Do we have something on that? John, you doing that?
Why do I have to talk all night? Anyway, this is, of course, 3443 Keswick Court, stream buffer variance. This is an extended application from October. And if you recall, the applicant appeared for variances, and the council directed staff to work with the applicant on revisions that addressed taking down the existing retaining wall and rebuild a retaining wall so that it is within the 75-foot buffer with a maximum height of 8 feet for the wall, and then to verify that the flow wall was installed in the rear yard during construction of the residence. If a flow well was not installed or is not functioning, to install or replace with new flow well. So we met with the applicant in good faith on 2 occasions online, and revised plans were provided in your packet. And staff is satisfied that the applicant owner has met your follow-up requirements, if you will, and we're here to answer any questions. Applicant was invited to attend tonight.
From council.
So before, if I remember correctly, this was an item that you did not make a comment on or make a decision on because of whatever the reason was. I can't remember. It's not.
Yeah.
So now you are ready to make recommendation for approval at this point?
Well, I think that the applicant acted on the items that council asked them to do last time. But it's a
I just want to make sure I'm hearing you right.
situation. Yeah, I think what I said earlier is that staff recommendation is not that important at this stage. We still don't find a hardship for it, but that's already been litigated on at the first meeting, and the project's already been built. You gave them guidance on 3 things to take care of after the last meeting, and the applicant has done that.
And we'll be able to reference these new drawings as for approval for substantial conformity of what's presented on whatever date that is.
Yeah. Yes.
So you have that guidance to know what we're approving.
So I'm going to see if I can sum this up. What they did was lower the wall 2 feet.
Lower the wall, right, and they'll move it.
So it's now an 8-foot wall.
They pulled it back quite a bit as well.
Yeah, take it down.
It's now mostly in the 75-foot buffer. There's a small area that still extends into the 50-foot, but now, previously, the majority of the wall was in the 50-foot buffer.
Okay.
So they are proposing to move the wall back. But it's still 8 feet tall, and they're not showing, I didn't see anything they were showing a fence or anything on top of it. So it's still a up to 8-foot tall retaining wall.
More questions? Thinking about it?
Yeah, again, it's hard to see what they've done because the plans are so tiny. And I know they haven't changed anything yet, have they? So the pictures that they've shown or showing in here are as built.
What is there now?
Previous.
Current,
Well, what they built.
yeah. Okay,
All right.
thank you, John.
Welcome.
All right, no council items for this evening, so that'll take us down to public comments. The mayor is the presiding officer. All remarks shall be addressed to the city council as a body, not to individual members. Anyone wishing to speak shall come to the microphone, give your name and address to the city clerk. Limit remarks to 3 minutes unless further time is granted by council, and not speak a second time until everyone wishing to speak has spoken once and no one can speak more than twice. Please do not speak unless you have the microphone and have been recognized. Anyone here wishing to address council this evening?
I don't think there's anyone here.
Yeah, everybody's already gone home and gone to bed. All right, we do not have an executive session this evening, so we are out. Thank you.
Mr. Todd.